Today, we'll lift you up so you can soar with your money, basking in the sun of your financial future, all of your hopes and dreams in front of you. Will literally be the financial wind beneath your wings. Wow, that kind of rolls off the tongue, doesn't it? Hey, did I mention John Hope Bryant is here? Talk about flying high. We'll skydive into financial literacy with this iconic leader.
I'm super happy. I get so pumped every time he's back. John Hope Bryant with us. How are you, man?
I'm deeply honored. I'm, one thing people are not today is bored.
Is there something going on in America? Is there anything going on, John?
Somebody said yesterday that there are decades where it seems like nothing's happening, and then there are days when it feels like decades are happening. And I think we're in the latter at the moment. If you want to feel relevant, if you want to feel like you're living in a moment in history, if you want to feel like everything you do matters, including your vote, this is that time. I mean, whatever you want to hire an intern, it's going to matter. You want to start a program or a nonprofit, or you want to fight for your rights or somebody else's rights, it's going to matter. You want to raise children who are going to be consequential to the future of America. Well, that time is now. So many things, no matter what the issue is, it's on the table for a decision. And us making these decisions, artificial intelligence, it will change 50 years in the next 5. If you want to make a difference and be the difference, this is your time, which is why I wrote this book, Financial Literacy for All, which I'm glad to say now is a national bestseller.
I saw that. Nice work.
Thank you. Because I believe this is a civil rights issue of this generation. And I think that if Dr. King was alive today, this would be the work he'd be doing.
Well, let's get into that, because there are a bunch of stackers. You know who listens to financial programs. You've been on CNBC a bajillion times, John. You know people that watch that stuff are people that are not necessarily who people like you and I are trying to reach. They're people that are fairly good with money. They find it fun to talk about, to get in the weeds around all this stuff. And I know there's a bunch of our stackers out there saying, because I want to make this really real for them, that they're saying, you know what? I love hearing John Hope Bryant. I love this message. But this isn't my problem. This is somebody else's problem. And I'd like to help, but it's not my problem.
That's true.
Let's tell our stackers. Let's start there. Why is it my problem, John?
Well, my God, I can answer that a half dozen different ways. Let me do a couple. Even my rich friends need my poor friends to do better, if only to stay rich. This economy is the largest economy on the planet, the biggest economy, the biggest GDP, the sole superpower in the world, 70% driven by consumer spending, not wealthy people, not rich people, not the stock market, by consumer spending. And 70% of most Americans are living from paycheck to paycheck. If you're making $100,000 today, even, and this is why, if this was just a poor person's book or a poor person's issue, I think it would not get any attention. But if you're making $100,000 a year today, 50% of those people are living from paycheck to paycheck. You're making $250,000 a year today, and a third of those people making $250 a year are living from paycheck to paycheck. You live in Manhattan. You're listening or watching this from Manhattan. Let me hit home. You make $100,000 a year. It feels like $39,000 a year. Can I get an amen? And I'll go one step further. I'm going to go really radical here. If someone happens to be racist and they go, I really don't care about any of this stuff. It doesn't relate to me at all. And I'm proud to be a racist, which is your right. If you support a Black person or the Black community to become successful, which is the opposite of the current argument today around diversity, equity, inclusion, et cetera. But we're going to put that aside for a moment. You support a Black person to be successful, even the racist wins, because GDP rises. For the first time in history, and I just issued a pamphlet today that is a companion to the book Financial Literacy for All, called The Business Plan for America. People can go to the website, look at the stats and the facts. But God has a sense of humor, Joe, because for the first time in history, you have a nation that is, within 10 years, a majority of minorities. You have a nation that today is the first time in history where the majority of people are over 65 in our lifetime. Those over 65 are baby boomers, read white, wealthy, prominent, older, trying to retire. They want to go play golf. They want to travel. God bless them. That's their right. They're trying to leave the stage of economic activity and wealth creation. But you got folks who are the farm club, the G League, the NFL farm team, the NBA farm team, the baseball farm team. They're trying to come on the stage. It's 40% of the population today, soon 50% plus, and they have been given no tools whatsoever on how to continue to drive the largest economy on the planet on wealth, on income creation and income growth and wealth creation. And if they don't do that, we're going to be rearranging the deck chairs in the Titanic. The ship is sinking. We'll be picking drapes. God has a sense of humor. We're all in this thing together. For the first time in history, demographics are destiny. I'll say it even more pointedly. There are not enough college-educated, successful white men to drive GDP for the next 30 years. And that's not a racial comment. Let's assume you killed, somebody said, oh, let's kill diversity, equity, inclusion. By the way, the phrase is dead. DE&I has been so maligned by those who hate the whatever. The phrase is dead. And not all the programs were great. And yes, there was some gaming and all that stuff, because there is no perfect. There's bums in my family. I don't need to go look for bums in the DE&I program. I got bums in my family. I believe in the bum factor, Joe. 20% of Republicans are bums. 20% of Democrats are bums. 20%
I think every
of
family's got them, John. I look at my family. I'm like, yeah, there's those people that are all in our closet, right?
So there's a bum factors everywhere. Okay, but fine. Let's assume you kill DE&I. You do all this stuff. Where's the farm club coming, given the demographics I just gave you, that allow those who killed those programs to continue to live a life of wealth and comfort? According to Citigroup, discrimination against blacks alone between the year 2000 and the year 2020, Citigroup now, not the NAACP, reported that it cost the U.S. economy, discrimination against blacks alone, for 20 years alone, cost the U.S. economy $16 trillion. Trillion. Don't believe me? Go to the report, go to the Business Plan for America website and read the report yourself. And if we just knock it off, Joe, we just stop doing it, not because we're moral, although I hope you're moral, but because you want self-interest. You want to keep your party going of economic prosperity. You pick up $1 trillion a year. Now we have a $26, $27 trillion economy. That's not inconsequential. $1 trillion against 26, 27 trillion is real money. And if you just, I think there's 2 to 3% of GDP locked in the bottom of the pyramid of poor whites, largest population of poverty in this country, blacks, browns, others, women, but also middle-class folks who feel that the ladder for them is broken, that no one is trying to help them go from the bottom to the top, which is why you have so many people saying they hate rich people, which is not true. You hate rich people until you become rich. What you hate is a game system. What you hate is a system that you think is rigged against you so that you, no matter how hard you work, you can't succeed. What you hate and you resent is somebody telling you to bootstrap yourself when somebody stole your shoes and denied you shoelaces because 2 generations ago, it was illegal for you to learn to read and write. I'm actually not, I'd laugh at some of this stuff because it's like right in your face. Like my grandfather was a sharecropper born in 1871. My grandfather, which means my great-grandfather was a slave without question. My second great-grandfather fought in the Union Army in response to the Emancipation Proclamation, and as a slave fought to protect those enslaving him in Memphis, Tennessee, as one of 7,000 officers fighting in the U.S. colored troops. So I'm not emotional about this. I like math because it doesn't have an opinion. I know that people live through fear sometimes. And that's what's going on now is they want a promise of the past. Can somebody please deliver me the past? The future scares me. The present terrifies me, but the future really scares me. Deliver for me a return to the past. That is a lie. It's not happening. It's not coming back. And it wasn't all that great, by the way, when you were in it.
this mythology of the past that none of us actually experience. But you even say that even just if we take this math down to just financial stupidity, which generally, I guess the word stupidity is not the right word. The fact that we don't have financial literacy cost us hundreds of billions of dollars.
$350 billion is a conservative estimate of what financial illiteracy costs the U.S. economy every year. And if you think about, we have mapped every zip code in America by credit score, Operation Hope has, and there's a Hope Financial Wellness Index people can go to. You want to tell me your zip code? I'll tell you your credit score. I'll tell you how you live it. You go to a white, rural, poor neighborhood, like where my wife grew up in West Virginia, or you go to a black, brown, urban neighborhood, like where I grew up, and you'll often see the same thing, Joe. You see a check casher next to a payday loan lender, next to a rent-to-own store, and a title lender, as in the title of your car, that you're giving them the title of your car for a short-term loan. Payday loans, rent-to-own stores, pawn shops, liquor stores, and a church down the street that was your neighborhood psychologist trying to make sure you don't go crazy once a week and you don't go postal on Monday. That's your neighborhood therapist. Now, Black and brown folks, we go to church differently. Black folks are very loud, we're emotional, we're passionate. My white folks, we're a bit more structured, a bit more left brain, we're a bit more right brain. But we're both going to church because we're trying to not go postal on Monday. We're trying to not go crazy in this world of ours. And Black folks, again, we riot loudly. I mean, Dr. King said that violence was the voice of the unseen and unheard. But my poor white friends appear to be rioting at the ballot box right now. Hello. So they're frustrated because the business plan for America walked away from them in 1970 after the Industrial Revolution was coming to an end, and no one gave them a new business plan. No one gave them a software upgrade. And they've sat around resentful for 50 plus years, and they are right to be frustrated and upset. They have every right. By the way, 25% of my clients are poor whites in the Deep South through Hope Inside programs that we have with banks like Bank First Tennessee and others. So I serve all of God's children. And I found what I've just told you to be true. All of the problems are the same. And if I can get the credit score up 50 points to 100 points, which is what we're doing at Operation Hope, get the debt down $3,800 for somebody making $48,000 a year, get the savings up $2,000, the bank can say yes to the home ownership loan or the line of credit or the small business loan they want to create. The bank, if you can get the credit score up to 700, my God, 750, the computer just starts saying yes to you. And all of a sudden you don't feel resentful of other people or the world around you as much. And so this affects everybody, and it absolutely affects your listeners and their way of life. Let me be blunt. We take America for granted. Everybody wants to be an American but Americans. We're entitled and spoiled. The city of Los Angeles, as an example, where I grew up as a young man, has give or take 6 million residents and 10,000 police officers, give or take, with a sidearm, cufflinks, and one round backup clip. That's not safety, Joe. That's hope. Because if anything goes sideways, and it did after the Rodney King riots where I founded Operation Hope, the then chief of police told his officers to get out of South Central LA. He told them to abandon. He thought they were go, get out of there. You're going to be overrun. And I thought it was a punk move, by the way. But he was doing a mathematical analysis that here's all these people coming at you, and he only had X number of officers. And so my point is that the city of LA, which is one of the largest economies in the world, only works, Joe, if people believe if I play by the rules, I keep my nose clean, I do the right thing, I obey the law, I work hard, I'm respectful of my elders, I stop at red lights. It'll pay off in a reasonable shot of success and failure on my own merit. And that hope thing, that if I can go from the bottom to the top, that I'm going to add to GDP, I'm going to make all these companies that your investors listening to this are investing in, all the companies that make televisions, the companies that make appliances, the companies that make and lease and finance cars. The companies that make the materials that go into a house, the companies that own the restaurants, the companies that own the technology, the backbone and the front loaded like Apple and Samsung, et cetera. You're investing in these companies. You're investing in Walmart, great company. You're investing in Target. We call it Target in our neighborhood. You're investing in McDonald's, right? You're investing in these stocks. Well, that only works if people at the bottom who are driving the economy are healthy enough to actually continue to partake and trade up on their car and renew their lease and buy a new refrigerator every 5 or 7 years or whenever they do it. So you have all of you in a self-interest. There's no investment stock called the police. There's no investment stock called the U.S. Army. There's no investment stock called war bonds that you benefit from. In America, I mean. So you need to invest in peace and serenity. And peace and serenity is prosperity for all. So yes, you're absolutely self-interested.
How we get there, John, you write, is through education. And I want to talk about some of the different people that we need to educate. But you start off by really going after credit and the way that we use credit. You've got a whole chapter called Credit is a Tool, Not a Toy. Let's talk about how we're misusing credit in America.
Well, first of all, people think credit is money. Start there. It's not.
I had to learn that the hard way, by the way. I think a lot of us did, that I had to learn through the 90s that, you know what, this is not money.
Me too, by the way. Look, the most dangerous thing in my wallet today, Joe, is my American Express Black Card. Because this thing here, and it's sexy and it looks nice and it's pretty.
Oh yeah, it's heavy.
It's heavy. It's got a little chip in it in case you want to kidnap me. There's no limit on it, and it's like, that means I can go buy the car in the car dealership, and technically I can buy the car dealership. But that's not even a credit card. This is a charge card, which means in 30 days, I got to pay this payment. I got to pay the whole balance. And a lot of people get in trouble. You start seeing celebrities in their bankruptcies and people who've won the lottery or whatever. You see this credit card stuff because they thought this was an extension of their wallet. And literally, it's just simply a way you're supposed to park a charge until such time as you can now or in a reasonable amount of time pay it back. It's not meant to be an extension on your annual compensation. But when you got too much month at the end of your money and you got low levels of financial literacy and low levels of self-esteem and high levels of ego and insecurity, you start wearing your assets on your ass. And so that's the easy sort of upscale example of this. But what most people are dealing with in their life is they confuse good debt with bad debt, whether it's a credit card or whether it's a regular loan. A capital can be equity and debt, by the way. I'm not sure people know that. But the good debt, whether it be a credit card, consumer debt, or whether it's another vehicle of capital provision, good debt is tied to something that appreciates. So, and bad debt is tied to something that depreciates. So if you're financing jewelry or financing clothes at a department store at 28% interest on that credit card, you're financing bad debt. If you're financing a concert ticket, financing it, people do this. They finance concert tickets, they finance car rentals, they finance vacations at 26% interest. That's bad debt. And the party's over instantaneously, and you're paying on it for years. I give an example in the book of a credit card used to buy a car for $14,000. And in that example, if you make the minimum payment, 10 years later, you will have paid double for that car and not a penny of principal. And so Ambassador Andrew Young has said to live in a system of free enterprise. He's on the balcony when Dr. King was assassinated in 1968. He's my dear friend and mentor. To live in a system of free enterprise and not to understand the rules of free enterprise must be the very definition of slavery. So you have over $1 trillion of credit card debt, almost $1.5 trillion now.
You said average person's carrying over $6,000 of credit card debt.
Right. And it becomes a noose around your neck because it doesn't go away. You can't shake it off. You can't say, oh, I was just kidding. It's easy to get it and hard to get rid of it. And so I think and that is the biggest move of your credit score, by the way, is your consumer credit card debt. And so I use credit cards coming up, but I use them for a business or businesses that I was trying to start when I didn't have traditional capital. And I'm sure there'll be a lot of people out there saying, John should not advocate using credit cards to start a business. Well, yeah, we shouldn't have poverty in America either. And that we shouldn't have had slavery, and we shouldn't have had there's a whole bunch of things we shouldn't have today. We shouldn't have racism. Well, all kinds of things we shouldn't have. But when you don't have a lot of optionality, you're going to have to get creative. And I used one credit card for my auto to get repaired at Pep Boys. And I only used it in an emergency. I only used it when I had to repair that tire or replace that tire, which, by the way, put me on the road to making some money on contracts. So that, to me, that was good debt. I'll admit it. Early on in my career, I used to use my credit card to buy stocks. I'm sure that people are going to go crazy now. This guy talked about that the interest rates on the credit card outweighs the return on the stock on an annualized basis. That's true, but culture is not only the most important thing in business, it's the only thing in business. And life and going public on Wall Street is storytelling. So what story are you telling yourself? What is the culture in your household? What is the culture and story in your head? And the story I was telling was, I'm an investor, not a consumer. I'm investing in myself. I'm investing in American stock. Because once I buy one stock, I got all the financials from that company. So it was a very cheap bet for me to buy a stock, share of stock or fractional share. I get all this data and information that made me smarter. But now
you're buying education.
I bought an education, but I also bought aspiration, because now I'm an investor and I have an investor mindset. And Joe, that gave me more energy. And it gave me more optimism. It made me a believer in the American dream. And that, my friend, was priceless.
Confidence leads to competence, which gives you the desire to take the next step, and it's this wild cycle. You are one of the if not the premier person who is educating so many entrepreneurs in America. I don't know any organization that's spearheading educating as many people as you guys are at Operation Hope. Chicken or the egg, John? I mean, which one is it? Does this education start at home? Should our stackers out there, is it time we're not spending with our family, with our kids, and digging into podcasts like this one, or reading your awesome book, or is it more of a systemic? This should start at school. Is it our schools? Is it our home life? Like, where does this meter begin?
I love your questions. You're always so smart. And you ask me questions that are not boring. They're real hard ones. I hate boring questions. I love tough ones. So it's a two-part answer. If you're a privileged class, which are most people probably that are stackers and listening to this, then your problem is first generation made it. Second generation is going to spend it. Third generation is going to lose it. Because you've made it, I've seen so many of my wealthy friends who don't want their children to suffer and sacrifice. What the hell are you talking about? You can't grow through unless you grow through legitimate suffering. Rainbows only follow storms. You're good at what you do because you struggled, you hustled, you worked hard. An entrepreneur works 18 hours a day to keep from getting a job. What is this participation medal crap? Like, there are winners and losers in life. I don't mind you giving somebody a medal for participation, but don't say that's just as good as coming in first, second, or third, because when you're trying to get market share for your business, third is very different than first. Second is very different from first. I mean, Blockbuster was second. They're also bankrupt to Netflix, and they could have bought Netflix for $50 million, but they were arrogant and they were presumptuous and they were out of business. Sears could have been Amazon, right? They could have been. They had a layaway book, and they had all that, you could mail order catalogs 30 years ago, 40 years ago, but lazy, arrogant, presumptuous, and just decided, you know what, this success is on remote control. But success only comes before work in one place, and that's the dictionary, because it's alphabetical. So the wealthy people need to sort of low self-esteem is everywhere. So if you're low self-esteem and high confidence, that can become arrogance. And you see it in your political leaders right now. Low self-esteem, insecurity, arrogance, overconfidence, money, and wealth. Extraordinarily dangerous. Now, if you're a parent who has that mindset, you're trying to floss for your kids. You're trying to floss for your wife. You're trying to live you may be living beyond your means. But what you're not doing is requiring your children to go to work with you. You're not doing is requiring your child to be the caddy at the golf place, which is where you learn how to build relationship capital. You're not giving them, you're robbing them of the hustle they're going to need when they get from underneath your coverage. Now, we can do a whole podcast on entitlement and how that's a death knell for resiliency and success. I was homeless. I grew up in the hood. Priceless. I dare anybody to come into a negotiating room with me. Come on. You got more degrees. You got credentials. You got PhD. Come on. Let's set an appointment. I'll run circles around you because I get up earlier. I hustle harder. I work later because I know I don't have those credentials. I grew up in the hood. I know. So I've had to overcompensate that insecurity tied to self-esteem, tied to an understanding that nobody's going to give me anything and I can lose anything at any moment. The paranoia keeps me on my game. And that should be passed down to your children. It's a culture. Now, flip it. My poor friends, you hang around 9 broke people, you'll be the 10th. So it's what they don't know that they don't know that's killing them, but they think they know. Why do they want to be rap stars, athletes, and drug dealers? All you see in your neighborhood growing up is symbols of success are rap stars, athletes, and drug dealers. It's rational. You're modeling what you see. And all a drug dealer is an illegal, unethical entrepreneur. You understand import, export, finance, marketing, wholesale, retail, customer service, security, territory, logistics. I mean, NASCAR came from moonshine running. This is everywhere. This is not just poor Black people, right? So you have brilliance everywhere. Some of it's easier to mine. So you have this brilliance in the stackers that gets thrown away in second and third generation because the right DNA was not emphasized. The right culture was not emphasized. So you've gone from a maker to a spender. You made it. Your family's going to spend it. See how long that lasts. Now you got people in the hood who can hustle, but confuse making money with building wealth. And you build wealth in your sleep. 18% of Black people own stocks. 41% of us, 42%, 43% own a home. We don't have life insurance policies. We don't have wills. We're hustlers. We over-index on, I want to get that bag, I want to make that money, I want to get this dollar, I want to get this cash. All money all currency is an exchange of value. It's nothing. It means nothing. It's literally making a living. Money today is making a living today, not building a life. So Steve Jobs, a Jordanian immigrant, people don't know that. His dad was Jordanian. His mother was Caucasian. They fell in love with each other, and she was having his baby. And daddy of the lady said, "Oh, no, you're not having this baby. Not in this household. We're going to put this baby up for adoption." And so they did. And the requirement had to be an ultra wealthy family, highly educated. That first family, Joe, accepted and then rejected Steve. They rejected him at the last minute, so they had to find a new family to adopt him. So they scramble, and now they find this middle-class family in Silicon Valley, names the Jobs family. And by the luck of a zip code, not the brilliance or the entitlement of a superior race, the luck of a zip code, Steve, who looked white, was actually white and Jordanian, Middle Eastern, who saved the world, right? He happens to live in Silicon Valley in this middle-class family, and who's around the corner? This guy named Wozniak. And they go in their garage and create a company that you and I love today called Apple. I've got my phone right here.
I got mine right here somewhere too. Yeah.
And they pioneered the touch screen and all this stuff. Before this was a BlackBerry. And everything was, you touched it, you moved it, keys, all that kind of stuff. They changed the whole dang on world. But what if Steve Jobs didn't get lucky and adopted there? What if he's adopted by a single mother on the South Side, deep in the South Side of Chicago, where drug dealers were all around him, and mom was at work, working 2 jobs. There was no father at home. He'd be the biggest, baddest drug dealer the world has ever seen because your talent's going to go somewhere. So in both situations, it's culture, right? To answer your question.
Yeah.
And it's intentional. Success is intentional. My wife, Shachel, would say all behavior is learned behavior. So when you go home tonight, let your children know you're reading the Wall Street Journal. Let your children listen to the fact that you're listening to this wonderful podcast with Joe, and listen to this one and listen to others. Talk about what you just experienced. Read the book, Financial Literacy for All. Have your kids have input on the review that I want you to make on Amazon on the book, or wherever you happen to get the book, Walmart or Black Bookstore, or wherever you happen to get your book. Put a review up. Have your child contribute to that. Have a weekly meeting about money. Let them know that the lights don't come on by themselves.
Do you know what I thought was funny, John? By the way, not funny. I thought it was incredible. Encouraging people with their kids not to be cool. Don't try to be cool. Try to be, and I like this quote, intellectually dangerous. You had somebody tell you that as you were growing up, and I thought that was the most badass phrase. Intellectually dangerous is something, man. Every kid should aspire to be intellectually dangerous. Forget cool.
Yeah, that's Tim Burt, who I just saw an hour and a half ago, and we did a kickoff of the American Aspiration Tour.
So good.
With Mayor Andre Dickens here in Atlanta. I'm in conversation with mayors across the city, across the country on this American Aspiration Tour. So this today was kickoff, and Tim Burt was there, who's in the book. And Tim said, who's a contractor, he owns a business here, a good man. He said, I've decided that there's a decision everybody needs to make. You're going to decide whether you want to be famous or dangerous. And he said, I decided I want to be dangerous, mentally, intellectually dangerous. One is from the shoulders down and won't last but a minute. The other one is the neck up and will last for a lifetime. Once you get educated, you'll never be uneducated. No one can take your education from you. And you combine that with financial freedom, which nobody can take from you unless you screw it up. And you bad. I mean, financial freedom, Joe, just might be the only freedom that no one can take from you. When you know better, you do better. And we should want everybody to be financially literate. There is no downside to this conversation. And nobody wakes up in the morning and says, let me be a bum. Let me be a crook. Let me be a scourge to society. They wake up in the morning on survival mode and maybe angry at society. And then they want to go take what's not theirs. I'm not rationalizing it. I'm explaining it. You want people to have more than they need for themselves, so they leave you alone, right? I mean, I can talk about this more. At the very least.
At the very least. Yeah. I just wish you were passionate about this, John. If you were at all passionate about this, it'd be better. His book is Financial Literacy for All: Disrupting Struggle, Advancing Financial Freedom, Building a New American Middle Class. You have some great, and I'll encourage everybody to read at the beginning how it's broken and why the system's broken, and then the education piece that we had a little conversation about. You've lots of conversation about this, but also some models. A model in Singapore, what Delta Airlines have done, some pretty powerful things that companies have done and countries have done to make the system better. It's powerful stuff.
And banks, Joe, banks. Getting the banks out of the no business. Sorry, you declined for credit. And back into the yes business. You've been approved because your credit score went up, your debt went down, your savings went up because of our coaching at Operation Hope.
Have you ever seen, there was a piece that I quote quite a bit a few years ago by a group called Nonfiction Research, which goes through a lot of the statistics that you go through, John, about the number of people that have eaten out of a dumpster before, the number of people that have unfortunately had to trade sex for money, the number of people, just these horrible statistics.
Wow.
at the end of this powerful piece, they kind of lay the blame at banks, that banks do a lot of transactional business and not enough business in education, which is something, frankly, they could even probably charge for.
Yes.
And that could be a huge revenue stream for them. And it creates a customer base that's wealthier as a result, kind of what you're seeing with Delta Airlines employees.
Yes. Well, the Delta model is a great model. Their CEO, Ed Bastian, is promoting what I call stakeholder capitalism. He's on my board. It's the wealthiest airline in the world, most profitable airline in the world, biggest airline in the world. Even when they screwed up this past week, it wasn't their screw up. It was a part of Microsoft and some tech error, but they were slow to correct. I was over there yesterday doing a town hall meeting. They acknowledged it. They're like, yeah, we blew it. We didn't recover as quickly as we could. Most of our leaders here have only been here for 3 years. We should have gotten some wisdom from people who worked here for 30, who used to use pen and paper before technology.
What?
But I mean, leadership is not just doing the right thing. It's also, it's life is 10% what life does to you and 90% how you respond to it. And responding with authenticity builds trust. And banking is a trust business. So anyway, the Delta model is a great model. Financial coaching and counseling at the bottom, $1,000 emergency savings account for anybody at Delta who goes through our coaching program. Ours, our Fidelity investments program, and then they do profit sharing at the top. As a company does well, their employees do well, and again, most profitable airline in the world. And even when they screw up in a way that's admirable and inspirational. The banks, I think, yes, need to renew their business model and upgrade their software. AI is going to drag them into the future. I think artificial intelligence. I hadn't thought about charging for financial education, but that's actually is very smart to think about that. They need to rethink everything. Are banks responsible for this? It's hard to say the banks are not holding some responsibility because banking is arguably one of the oldest businesses in the world. So it's always been with us. So, and clearly you can't finance anything. You can't grow an economy without accessing bank capital. Banks in the 1800s actually underwrote and secured slaves, human beings, as collateral for loans for plantations. That's a little known fact. JP Morgan Chase had human beings in their asset list. Truist Bank and a bunch of other, any bank that's over 150 years old, give or take, probably had some interesting engagement with the wealth creators of that time, which were slaveholders. So you don't have to go very far back to lay some blame in the banking sector. But I do commend them also because they're the only federally backed private institution in America. And they've done a good job of honoring that through the Community Reinvestment Act, where $500 billion gets reinvested back into underserved neighborhoods. No other business model does that in America. No one. $500 billion, Joe, gets reinvested through the Community Reinvestment Act. So if you're getting all your deposits from the north of your city, you've got to make some effort to reinvest investment, lending, and service in the south of your city on a safe and sound basis, which means you got to provide financial literacy education for those residents so that you're making a loan that does get paid back. So they're not charging for it, but they're paying for it. They're paying organizations like ours to do financial literacy education. But I'm trying to get these companies and banks to mainstream this as a business model, not a philanthropy model.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's very congruent with what they're saying. Use it as a business model, not, look at us giving back.
Right.
Again, the book is Financial Literacy for All. We will link to Operation Hope. We'll link to the book on our show notes at Stacky Benjamins. I just got to say again there, Mr. Bryant, that thank you just not for mentoring our stackers today, but for mentoring so many people across the United States and beyond. I as you know, so appreciate your work.
Well, I appreciate you. And the answer is always yes. When I see your name comes across my desk, I'll be honored to talk to you always. You're good people.